So here we go. First on stage, I would like to invite Barry Pollard, who works as a developer relations Chrome. Second, Michael Hablich, who works as product manager in Chrome. And then we're joined by some amazing external speakers in Ashish, CTO Times Internet. Come on, calories, calories. And then we have Sambit from CTO MakeMyTrip as well. Oh, we have a lot of MakeMyTrip fans here. All right. And this is Saurabh. Hi, everyone. Thank you, thank you. You burned some extra calories. Awesome. So we have amazing topic today, the evolving landscape of web development. We all know like the landscape is really evolving in the AI agentic era. So we're going to discuss some of those things here. And to begin with, maybe I would want all of you to introduce yourselves quickly. Name, company, of course, and then one fun fact about you.
Hi everyone, I'm Barry Pollard. I work for Google. Anyone here heard of Google? Yeah. I work in the Chrome team, mostly concentrating on web performance, core web vitals, Lighthouse, dev tools, and that sort of thing. I'm part of the wider UX team, so I work closely with the CSS team, Brahmas, Yunas, and some of the HTML team and HTML and Canvas and those sorts of things that we're bringing to the web platform. Fun fact, I'd forgotten my fun fact. I'm all the way over from Ireland and very jet lagged, so if I fall asleep here, then just give me a prod or poke and wake me up.
You're working a lot, Barry. Thank you. Michael.
Hi, my name is Hablich. I am a product manager working on Chrome developer tools. So that's tools like DevTools or Puppeteer, Modern Web Guidance, and so on. I have over 20 years of experience working in tech in various roles like tester, developer, engineer, manager, now a product manager.
Wow.
So quite a voyage. And yeah, the topic, the evolving landscape of web development is something that concerns me deeply because I build tools for exactly that. Fun fact, you got me there. Let me think. Right. One of my dogs was part of a World Cup competition for dog agility, but without me.
Oh, all right.
I don't know if you know dog agility. Yeah. Whatever.
Hi everyone, Ashish from Times Internet. I'm CTO at Times. Spend my day working on technology which reaches millions of people through our products. Fun fact, I have a habit of evaluating all new AI product launches, even though most of them do not make a part of my day-to-day workflow.
Oh, nice, interesting. Sambit.
Yeah, hi, this is Sambit, works with MakeMyTrip, primarily responsible for all technology platform and AI platform that power MakeMyTrip applications. Fun fact, I think I'm probably the most mistimed person in this panel. Don't know much about UX as a tech. My team helps me and I trust them fully.
I mean, glad that you talked about it, but I think we don't agree to that, Sambit. and since we don't get a hold of you two so easily, I would want to start with you two, talking about how is web development in general changing in this AI era. Maybe you can start with you, Ashish.
I think we are going through one of the biggest transition in web development, maybe after the move to mobile-first experiences. The first shift itself is whom we are building for. Traditionally, I think we have been building for human users primarily. I think going forward, we will be increasingly building for human, obviously, but at the same time, AI agents who can discover information, probably reason about it, and maybe complete a task on behalf of users. The second shift I see is how the products are being built these days. Most of the AI coding tools, I mean, I'm sure all of you guys are using it, have drastically improved the productivity of engineers. And I think with that, engineers probably spend lesser time on boilerplate code. In fact, spend more time on product decisions, architecture, and user experiences. Finally, I think the important shift, which is the most important, I believe, is how the web platform itself is evolving. Most modern browsers have been changing rapidly. I think richer APIs, inbuilt AI features, better performance parameters, And I think most importantly, standardized capabilities across all browsers. I believe the next decade, it will not be just building rich user experience, mobile responsive. I think it will be around building intelligent user experiences which can work both for human and AI agents.
Wow, so many insights there. Thank you so much, Ashish. Sambit.
Yeah, so no, I'm old enough to see the 90s and 2000s. I'll take you to the portal areas. Portal, when internet came in and everything was a portal, so everything was web pages, right? And kind of organized around files. Then when the app era comes in, app era was basically try to organize information around functions. So you get to see the micro functions coming in and app for every individual task that we are trying to perform. And with AI coming in, I think again the consumption is getting broadened. Consumption is not getting synced for you to kind of using a specific app or something like that. So once that consumption pattern evolve, then people again will go back to the web eras, right? Whether it is desktop or whether it is mobile, you will fundamentally get into that as a consumption layer. And we are already seeing that as a pattern. India is primarily app, but we are looking at the quality of traffic that is flowing in right now is much better, much qualified, right? It is not like a SEO, GEO traffic which is falling in. People are making broader questions, semantic questions, and people are asking cross-app related questions, right? So some point of time you probably have to do that. You have to kind of instantiate 4 or 5 different apps. Once the agent takes place, I think web is going to be the primary channel of conversation, communication part of it. We are seeing a glimpse of that. But I think probably we are completely taking a U-turn and seeing how app and web is going to dominate. At our level, I think first thing we are fixing it from the SEO, GEO, organic traffic standpoint, and making sure whatever app and whatever basically web apps kind of footprint that we have is intelligent enough. Previously, all of our innovation was going into the app, and if there is an adoption, it goes into the web. We have kind of switched that now because it is easier to rapidly test things out in the web, and if it is getting adoption, then take it to the app side of it. So we are in that journey.
Got it. Oh, wow. So the conversion is pretty imminent, like from being very acquisition heavy to actually transactional and intelligent platforms. Oh, wow. So great thoughts. By the way, like from Chrome perspective, are we hearing any more of such thoughts, similar thoughts? Or also from Chrome perspective, what are we doing to address?
Yeah, like when I speak to developers, it's very similar to what Sampath said there. I think we moved from a very much an experimentation phase. Whenever initially AI came along, it was cheap, if not free, or you had unlimited plans, you pay a monthly fee and you get as many tokens as you want.
Yeah.
That seems to be gone or going very fast at the minute. And now people are wanting much more value out of it. Rather than playing with it and creating a cool demo, and when AI works, it's fabulous, it's magic.
Magic.
But quite often it didn't. And I think we're seeing much better quality, so it is working more often. But there's also a much more onus on getting the value out of it, not token maxing, to use a term. And I think some of the tooling that we're creating, and Mike will talk to that in a minute, is more focused on pointing the AI right thing, rather than spin up 20 AI agents and just guess, and hopefully one of them will eventually figure it out. It's kind of direct it towards it there so that you can get the right answer for the fewest number of tokens and as quickly as possible. So we're seeing that it's much more productionalizing of the development and seeing systems grow up, whether that's review systems, whether that's testing systems or code generation systems, rather than initially just creating a thing and saying, you go test it. They're creating it, they're testing it, they're spinning up web browsers, they're actually checking things out there, which again is helping with the quality, but we just need to be conscious of the cost at all times there.
Makes sense. Anything you'd like to add?
A lot was already said. In particular, like the mentioning of agentic web and the shift and the connection to the mobile web and how we think about that. I think going back to being web development, there's a few dimensions, at least I like to think about. There's one of them is we need to reason about the code being, the code that is being generated is the right code. Then there's the code being generated, or the stuff that we build with the code that is being generated is the right thing. And for both of those things, we offer tools that help the coding agent and help you to actually make it correct. So modern web guidance for generating the right code and making sure that the coding agent is generating the right code. And on the other hand, Chrome DevTools for agents to make sure that your coding agent actually can reason about that what it built is actually the right thing, because it then can validate it inside in the browser. There's a third dimension of that let's see if we're going to cover that, and that is more going into the product management directions. Like, okay, now that we built it, do we want to keep on maintaining it? Is it worth it? And I think that is going to be a very interesting conversation to have in the future. Like, if code generation and generation of applications is cheap, how do we filter out the ones that are simply not worth being maintained anymore?
Got it. So I think the change is pretty common across both these sides. And I think one thing which we as humans are not very comfortable with is change in generally. So my next question is very organic for that sense. What are the challenges that you guys are facing while shipping new features with all these changes happening?
Yeah. So while Myra remains our primary chatbot, we basically builds a complete conversation platform using WebMCP as the platform, just to test it out, how easy it is and how comparable from an experience standpoint. It is live, people can play around with it. So whatever I'm going to talk about, the limitations is from that practical experiment part of it. One is the session, whenever you open up a tab, basically the session memory is remain part of the tab, and people usually switch tab, and fundamentally that breaks the flow, right? The second one, what we have seen is the connection pulling side of it. Every time that you have to try to initialize, there is a lot of retry involved. If I take the 95 percentile, the value will be around 2 to 3 times. And if I have kind of exposed some skills, part of the web page, right? There is no way for me to index and make that knowledge available upfront when the app is basically loading, right? So when you actually do a semantics query, it is trying to learn what is the skills available and act on it, right? That means fundamentally you are never going to improve the experience part of it. It is always runtime and always can hallucinate at point of time. That is practically from implementation standpoint. If I talk about on the security side of it, we are always worried about prompt injection. There is no governance guardrail available at this point of time. And every point of time, my DevOps team and security teams ask for audit trail to figure it out what exactly happening, or if they want to control the experience and behavior part of it, saying how many requests that we are getting. I think those kind of governance tools that needed to be built around it to make it a lot more secure and useful. So those are the challenges, but I think the benefit side of it is you can take any dumb application and make it AI ready in no time without really kind of fiddling around with your backend API part of it. As long as your JavaScripts are a little bit of well written, it is AI ready. I think that is the biggest advantage.
Thanks for sharing those insights. I think we all use Myra, and it seems very easy. Oh, this would have been easy to implement, but these challenges are real. Ashish, from your perspective, what are the challenges?
I think from an enterprise perspective, the challenge is not that there's not enough innovation in the web development. I think there's a different kind of challenge. The browsers, AI models, and developer tooling all are changing simultaneously at a much faster pace, and I think it's difficult sometimes for engineers to keep up to date with that. So that's one. Also, I think it's also important, or the challenging part is that knowing what capability to use when it's ready for user. Because I think at times we operate product at a larger scale. Whenever we decide to add a new feature, I think it's not just about understanding the functionality of that feature. I think it's more about compatibility of that feature across different browsers and versions, its impact on security and performance, and long-term maintainability. I think it's exciting always to be the first. It's important to be reliable as well.
Makes sense.
Second challenge I see is the pace at which the development is happening. I think, as you mentioned, I think it's easy to generate code. Nobody is writing code mostly these days on their own. But I think along with that, there comes a larger discipline of maintaining guardrails around code reviews, automation test cases, and all this stuff, which are taking most of the time now, rather than writing code. And third, I think, is the discoverability remains a problem. I think the way browsers' capabilities are evolving, I think it's difficult for engineers to figure out whether the feature is ready for production or still evolving. If it is, what are the best practices? How can I use it? And all that stuff. These pretty much, I think, are ongoing challenges which we see in our org.
I mean, you talk about keeping up the pace, and I think the Chrome is now moving towards 2 weeks release cycle very soon, so it's going to be even more difficult. But I do know that Chrome is trying to solve for all, like most of these issues that you talked about. And Barry, like, would you want to cover them?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting listening to those is these are not new challenges.
Yeah.
These are all challenges we've had for a long time. We're getting new facets of it, but keeping up with new experiences, knowing what to do. I think there's some young faces in the crowd, but there's some older faces nearer my age that I see there. We grew up on Stack Overflow. We copied and pasted an answer from 5 years ago, and we put it in there, and that did the answer. And in a way, there's a new challenge with that with AI, in that they've been trained, and training takes time, and they might be 2 years out of date, and the web is moving so fast now. 2 years is an eternity. So they don't know about the fact you don't need those 20 lines of JavaScript, and you can do it in 1 line of CSS or whatever.
Yeah.
I think what is interesting is that we have ways of addressing these challenges now. So we recognized this in Chrome 3 years ago. We launched the baseline initiative before AI had really taken off, because we saw it as a human problem back then, not just and it's naturally led it well into the AI thing. And you can say into AI, I want something that's baseline newly available or whatever. And we're, Modern Web Guidance, the other tooling that we've launched for this I/O, is kind of the next evolution of that. We're trying to say, okay, we recognize you're being trained on old things, whether because you went to university a long time ago and you're an idiot, or whether because you're an AI and you've been trained a long time ago. Here's how we can help fill that gap. And similarly, testing, I hear the pain. I hear that a lot from developers, particularly open source developers. Opening a PR is dirt cheap now. Reviewing that PR, deciding whether you want to maintain that code going forward or that feature or whatever is painful. But again, I think there's ways that AI can help address that. It can do the initial review. It spots lots of things. It's a very intelligent linter. And for those who did open source without linting, whenever they discovered linters, they're like, oh, this is brilliant. I don't need to niggle about all the little things there. And AI is a super linter that spots things that I don't even spot and things like that.
Yeah.
There's still challenges to get there. Same with security. I thought it was very interesting at the end of the keynote today, whenever they started talking about the way that you can secure there, because Daniel Sternberg from curl, he tweeted out this morning on LinkedIn, posted, whatever. AIs are great at raising security bugs, but less great at fixing security bugs. But we saw this morning that that's possible, and I think that will come, where it's like, okay, they can spot it, they can fix it, they can do that. There's still the review process and stuff like that. So again, none of these are new challenges, but we have new problems, but also new solutions in this thing. I think it's a very interesting space that we're going to see there, and I think I feel proud to be part of Chrome that's addressing these, but also predicting some of these things and saying, we didn't launch Modern Web Guidance a week ago.
Yeah.
We started work on it not a year ago, but 6 months ago maybe.
Modern Web Guidance?
Yeah.
Half a year ago?
Yeah, exactly, about 6 months ago. So we recognized this was going to be a problem, and I think that's something that we're quite good at in Chrome and in Google, so I hope we'll continue on and do that. And I'm hoping that developers can benefit from that whenever we launch these things.
Absolutely. So I think catching on to that piece, right, Modern Web Guidance, I think you need coding agents before you use them, and I think this is where I want to ask you the question now, Michael, how can we ensure that the AI coding agents support the Modern Web AI APIs?
Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, there's two facets to that. A, it's about making sure that the code is being written is actually the right code. And for that, Modern Web Guidance uplifts your coding agents to be able to wield modern web APIs and capabilities, but also be able to make those capabilities and APIs actually also work in other browsers, also recognizing baseline and all that stuff. Because coding agents, I think you mentioned it, they have a cutoff date for the models that they are using, and they simply might not know, for example, about WebMCP. So you might have seen the demos we have in the booths there, and one of them is the WebMCP demo, and half a year ago, for example, WebMCP was not a thing. I think it was still a library at that point. And if you use modern web guidance, your coding agent will actually know what modern WebMCP is, will be able to WebMCP your web page. We also have a demo for that.
Yeah.
And will do it more or less correctly. It will do it correctly, probably, because when it knows the APIs, it's relatively mechanical, which is the magic of it. And I think that's very compelling and very useful, because in the end, the code that the coding agent then is creating is more effective, but also more efficient. Compared to not using it, not using modern web guidance. And we even have like a very elaborate infrastructure set up to actually prove that, because we are running a lot of tests, a lot of evals, that's how we call them,
Yeah.
to understand how much uplift, how much more effective do we make a coding agent. And this is only about code generation, but then you have generated a lot of code. So let's assume your combo box that you just added to your web page or your WebMCP function is there, and it's in the browser. Now you actually would want to validate that it works. And without a browser connection, what you would have gone back from a coding engine like, okay, try it out in the browser. With Chrome DevTools agents, you actually can tell your agent, no, you do it. And the agent then can go into the browser and actually validate the result themselves, test it, do exploration testing or something like that with it. Or we also have a case study from Pear that actually goes a lot more in depth how you can set up a whole agentic loop based on latest technologies. Super interesting. Maybe we have a QR code for that later on. Or if not, go to the DevTools booth. We can give you the QR code. Anyway, what this enables is that suddenly you have the agentic loop closed, and your agent can self-improve by itself, and you don't need to shepherd it all the time, don't need to oversee it all the time. You can simply turn away on the work that you delegated to it, and then when it thinks it's finally done, you actually can review the outcome, and the outcome will also be better quality than without a review, of course, right?
So basically, to summarize, we are basically solving both the problems. One, letting users write good code, like coding agents write good code through modern web guidance, and then removing the blindfold of testing by providing Chrome DevTools for agents.
Right. Very nicely summarized. Thank you.
All right. Now,
Sorry, if I could just add to that. I think another point to address what you raised earlier is these are all model agnostic. So Gemini's obviously the best model, and we should use it. You hear that, Paul? Good boy. But we make sure they work with all models out there, and we're taking less of it being the knowledge in the model, and more means that you can switch the model and do that. And quite often myself, I work on the cheaper Flash models because they're quicker, and I'm getting the right answer anyway because we're prompting it, it's testing it, and stuff like that. So yes, there's still a lot of churn in there and doing that, but we're hoping there's less of that of, oh, you have to use this model. Oh no, that's last month's model. Why are you using that? You have to use this. As long as you're using some of these toolings around the model. Speed becomes a bigger thing rather than the right answer, because they're all giving the right answer, hopefully.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of web, right? We want to develop things which are agnostic of, like generally works cross-platform, cross-functionality and support. So I think we touched upon WebMCP as well in between, and I think that was something which I wanted to understand from you a bit more. Since we've talked about it, I think I'd probably just quickly jump straight away to partners sharing about, have you heard, like, what are you doing with WebMCP, which basically helps to make sure that the site is ready for agentic web?
So I think agentic web is forcing all site owners or organizations to think how to build the next version of your product. I think traditionally, the last 2 decades, we have been designing products for human. I think going forward, we have to solve for AI, agentic web as well. And that's where I think WebMCP is an exciting standard. Think of AI agent, instead of scraping your site or reading through, figuring out from DOM what it offers, what if the site can expose tools via WebMCP, and it can expose, I think, the capabilities which it wants to the user in a standard, secure way. And I can take a couple of examples from our ecosystem, from Times. Take Times Prime, which is our all-in-one subscription product. So members have access to hundreds of benefits across dining, travel, shopping, lifestyle. Obviously, they can go, they can browse, they can filter the traditional way. We do recommend benefits as well. But what if AI agent, I mean, you can go and ask, I'm traveling to Bangalore this week, give me the best benefit available to me. The site exposes the tool, knowing the user subscription status, agentic web can find out the best benefits available to you. Another example, TY Homes, which is our latest new product around real estate premium. So buying property is not just a search problem. I think typically buyers has to go through a lot of information, figure out amenities, build a reputation, pricing, financial options, and all this stuff. Again, I think agentic web can play a role here. Scan through the data via standard tools available from the website, give a more personalized, maybe answer questions for the user, maybe help him scheduling a site visit, and guiding him through the buying process. So I think that's where I think WebMCP comes into picture, where it can make these capabilities interoperable, secure, in a reliable fashion. And I typically compare agentic web with SEO, what SEO has done to the web. I think search engines are an important consumer for the websites and for the content. I think the next evolution is agentic web. But here I think we are not only going to solve for discovery and indexing. I think you have to solve for intelligent actions as well.
Got it. So you're really leaned into trying out WebMCP. We got to know that. Sambit, how is MakeMyTrip experimenting with WebMCP?
I'll give a use case from Google itself, right? I think Google has reached out to us saying, is there is a way we can kind of expose them the WebMCP to index and do the GEO and the AI updates that you look at, right? The AI insight whenever do a query, right? That means fundamentally they will be able to bring in the pricing and inventory related information into your AI insight itself and kind of do a forward flow. You don't have to really migrate people back into the funnel, right? Which is usually the practice, right? So just look at the power. Your fundamental Google as a business doesn't understand how my API architecture look like, my data structure look like. They are just consuming my web layer and able to show the nuggets and the relevant information which is useful for the user at the AI insight level itself and able to make a transaction part of it. So fundamentally it gives you, because every time we do an affiliate integration, it takes time at both ends. And you don't expect everybody to understand travel as a domain, right? It is complex domain. So if you start exposing your capability at a web layer and somebody is able to consume that, you will be able to build distribution channel or affiliate channel very, very quickly, right? And you can make necessary changes at your end without really disturbing their workflow part of it. I see these as a big potential. We are working with a couple of vendors in those areas to see how we can empower them from a distribution standpoint. And internally, we are making sure all of our platforms and all of our layer, if you really look at, you have a client layer, client backend layer, and then the application, and then the actual backend layer, right? A lot of our knowledge actually resides on the client backend layer. We are trying to see, what kind of information we can actually push it into the client, because WebMCP is only exposed at the client layer, right? And interacting at that layer. So, that is an interaction we are having. We are trying to figure it out. How do we minimize? And there's the biggest capability is you can take a dumb UI and make it AI enabled, basically semantics enabled very, very quickly, right? So for us, it's not like making our UI dumb to smart, but it is making our distribution capability more interesting and integrate with all these third party, right? I think Gemini reach out to us, OpenAI and everybody. They ask for MCP, then now we are talking, can you deal with at a web MCP layer, which I can filter it out rather than both party getting into, the MCP layer part of it. Because MCP, the moment I do MCP, I actually share a lot more information than I actually want to expose, right? Because client layer is already a filter layer.
Makes sense. I think one important thing you talked about is it's not just about, say, Google, but any agentic platform actually leveraging WebMCP beautifully. Gemini Chrome is one which you might have seen, one of the booths there, which might use it. Again, some of the others might use it and stuff like that. So great points there. We talked about modern web guidance. We talked about dev tools for agents. We talked about WebMCP and stuff in under a minute, just because we are short on time. Barry, do you want to talk about what should developers try right now? A list of 3-4 amazing features.
Yeah, I mean, to take it back a bit, like we talked a lot about AI and the agentic web here. To me, AI is a means to an end, and as is the agentic web, it's like purchasing that thing or whatever. I personally still love the web. I love developing websites.
We know that.
No, but it's fantastic. It's the one medium where you can sit there, open an HTML editor or text editor, write some HTML, publish it on the web, and everyone in the world, from Ireland where I am to India to Australia, can see that website. It's such an amazing medium. So I think in this AI age, I think it's important not to forget that and look for the user experience side. So I'm also, as well as excited to see what the web becomes, I'm also excited to see how we're enhancing it. So things like I work on performance, so I'm very excited about the SoftNav's measurement of core web vitals, because there's an awful lot of SPA apps out there that we're not measuring properly. I think CSS is continuing to evolve at a huge rate and a non-stop rate. So seeing being able to create popovers with lines of code rather than hundreds of lines of code. I think declarative partial updates, some of the stuff Paul talked about in the keynote this morning in Chrome, I was really glad to see that we concentrate as well as the features. It wasn't just all AI. I mean, it's an important part, but I love all these features that we're still bringing there, view transitions, all these things that are brand new to the web are amazing. HTML on Canvas seems a really exciting API that I'm doing there.
True.
So I'm excited to see what people build with those things and actually see what do that through AI as a tool, rather than just, AI for AI's sake. Saying that, I'm also excited to see what websites do it, and you touched on it earlier. I think at the minute it's been developers use AI, but what about when websites use AI? Whether that's the websites themselves, we launched the prompt API, you can now integrate things there. It's got things that you need to consider, prompt injection, that sort of thing, but there's new capabilities there for developers to use for users. And then the whole agentic web is fascinating. I have no idea where that's going to end up.
So many things, so many things evolving.
But it's an exciting time in lots of reasons and lots of different areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we absolutely loved your keynote, Paul. So thanks for that plug. Having talked about so many features, I'll just do a very quick rapid fire here. Favorite feature, Michael?
Favorite non-AI feature? That's probably HTML and Canvas, because I think it's amazing that Canvas now gets better accessibility per default.
All right. Ashish?
I would say AI-assisted browser capabilities. I think there's so much you can do natively on the browser itself without calling the cloud APIs and other stuff. I'll also probably baseline, which is I think it's not as glamorous as AI, frankly, but I think for teams who are working on a scale, they have to deal with multiple versions and browsers. I think that's where it helps.
Absolutely. Sambit, favorite feature?
No, absolutely. Web GPU or edge kind of computing using browser, I think that's a great capabilities, and we are already leveraging it. I think that's probably the future here to stay.
All right, and we'll ask 2 audience people as well. Favorite feature? Anyone? Can you pass on the mic? Anyone? Favorite feature? Yes, we have a hand there. Good catch.
The new, hello. Yeah, the new corner radius API.
Oh, lovely.
As a designer.
And you get to pass it to,
The web MCP feature?
The web MCP? All right. Nice. There seems to be a lot of excitement about whatever we have talked about. If there is any Q&A, more than happy. We are all around here. Come visit us at the Chrome booth. And with that, a huge round of applause for amazing panelists here. And even louder applause for you all because you all have been amazing. Thank you so much.